to sign up.
I like that. Well, I am Leslie. I've recently moved here from Portland, Maine, so not super far away. I've been teaching Pilates since 1999, so a long time. It's my full-time career. That's what I can say I've done my whole life. I have been interested in helping. My mother has osteopenia, but she also has really bad rheumatoid, and that has really been riddled with her, especially her hands, but her feet as well. And it's interesting the correlations between the two diagnoses, like how she moves, basically how movement heals. The more you can move, the better it is, right? And I'm not sure how much you've researched about osteoporosis or osteopenia, but osteopenia is the precursor, right? And those tests are pretty baseline. Like you have one number and you're not over it, but you can have the number before, right? Like you could be right here and not leap over the scales. So, and my research recently in preparation for this course is realizing that, yes, I always knew they tested the hip and the spine. I didn't realize that, I did know that wrists were at fault and one of the most commonly broken areas, fractured areas, but I didn't realize they don't test them. So like that's one area where you could have more osteoporosis than you realize, and they don't test it. Some doctors will offer it, but it's usually not covered is the issue. Because as long as you have it in the bigger bones, which makes sense, then that's a problem. So what we're trying to accomplish with this class, what my mission for you is in these 3 hours, is try to start at the baseline where maybe you're more advanced than that. Maybe you can do more than where we're going to start, and we'll kind of like stack on after that. Because what I'd rather you know is how to keep you absolutely safe, and then how to challenge yourself. And the challenge is the goal. To order for your bones to build more bone, we have to kind of do the pull of the muscle and to make them need to build more bone. So in order to do that, I do need you to challenge yourself, but I want you to do it as safely as possible. So we're going to kind of do it in reverse a little bit, where we start like everyone's brand new to movement and then we work our way up. And now I want you to know yourself enough, please, to stop. And the hard part with osteoporosis is it doesn't hurt, right? Like it's a silent, like sometimes you'll be like, oh, my wrist really hurts, or oh, something hurts, but you're not really sure if you did something, right? Or like what you did necessarily to aggravate it. So the trying to empower you guys to realize when is a good time to hold back and when is a time that you have to push forward. There is a impact, basically like jumping and all of that. That's really great for your bones because that helps with the jarring. But once you have the osteoporosis, like those of you who with osteopenia, and that's where you're at right now, a little bit of impact is good. And we'll go over what's good and what's not. But like once you have that osteoporosis diagnosis, it becomes a little, I almost want to say scarier to do those motions and know that you're going to do them safely. So that's where this forum is. It is a workshop, so please talk to me, ask questions. This is not just a class where usually I have Pam talk to me in my classes all the time, but it's okay if you talk. But I expect questions. So we're gonna break down some basics first. And the most basic thing for moving for anyone who's done Pilates or anyone who's even heard about Pilates is that breathing is one of our crown principles. And breathing can be done in so many different ways. You can force your breath or think about your breath coming in and out of your body in different pathways. And it's kind of good to do that, to mix it up and to figure it out. However, I'm seeing a lot of you sitting on the floor now, right? Our posture is everything when it comes to osteoporosis. And sitting up straight is a huge thing. But even when we breathe, our spine moves, our body moves. So what we're going to start with today is we're going to lie back on our backs. Now, this is where we might have to take a second. And if anyone needs a pillow or a block or a little cushion under your head, I will help you address that. So when we lie down, I'm going to actually turn the lights off as that doesn't bother everybody. They tend to make my eyes go fuzzy. And it's not dark out today. It's not raining, so you're not going to fall asleep. So you're going to bend the knees in. Your feet are flat on the floor. And we're going to stay here. So what I want you to think about for a moment is just close your eyes and fall deep into the mat. Like fall as if you're not holding yourself up. And take a few breaths without trying to figure out how. I'm going to give you this under your head. Let me see if that's enough. If you want a little bit more, is that better? And as you breathe, now start to notice, are you naturally breathing in through your nose or in through your mouth? Let me give you this under your head. Does that feel a little better? If it's too high, let me know. You're breathing out your nose. I'm going to give you that. So there's this awesome book I read. You want one of these? I'm not sure if you want to try this under your head.
Very, very flat.
Yep. Okay, well, come on. Turn over, get up. Definitely don't start your vertigo here with me. That sounds, I don't want to be responsible for that. Yeah, take care of yourself. If you need to sit up at any time, please. That goes for everybody. Please do what you need to do. So I can't remember the author, which is horrible, but there's a book that was very popular during the pandemic called Breathing. And what the best thing I got out of that is when you breathe in through your mouth, it's like drinking pond water. Right? Enough said, right? Gross. So when you breathe in through your nose, you filter the air. So you want to filter the air through your nose when we breathe in. And when we breathe in right now, I want you to breathe in through the nose and fill up your rib cage. So if you take your hands and you can cross, so you can put one hand on the opposite, like so you're kind of hugging yourself, and breathe in and try to fill your ribs away from each other. So you're kind of opening to the sides of the room and exhaling from there. And when you exhale, yes, your rib cages will fall down towards each other again, but we want to try to keep some of the space we've created in the back. So instead of just thinking about pulling the breath into the lungs and forward up towards the sky or out to the sides of the room, also think of breathing into the back of the lungs, like into the mat. So as you fill your lungs, you're breathing into the low back. And you should feel like you can create more in your body, like you're filling up a balloon, basically. And as you exhale, you should exhale through the mouth because you've already filtered that air. Now it goes out. And if you forcefully exhale, and then you put one hand on your belly, if you forcefully exhale, you'll feel your belly move. So you, right? It tightens a little bit. Nothing wrong with that. So I don't know if any of you have played an instrument or were singers at any time, but diaphragm breathing, right? Have we heard about this? So our diaphragm is actually muscle, and it attaches, and muscles attach around it. So we want to make sure that that's moving. And when that's not moving, we can create lots of trouble with our pelvic floor, but that's a totally different class, which is also one of my favorite things to talk about. But when we get stuck in our diaphragm, we also get stuck with the ability to take deep breaths, and our shoulders start to get tight, and our necks start to get tight. And with osteoporosis, that could start to pull us forward, even without osteoporosis, right? Like when we're not taking deep breaths, we can get tight in the chest and neck, and that will pull our bodies forward, which is what we're trying to avoid at all costs. So as you breathe in now, please no falling asleep, I want you to open your shoulders and feel like you're pulling your breath into your shoulder blades. Obviously you can't, but that as you breathe in, your shoulder blades fall into the floor and lengthen, almost like they're being painted out on the mat. And then exhale out the mouth from there. All right, we're going to take this up to seated. So when we come to sitting, so we can come up to a seated position. You can sit however you're comfortable. If you prefer your knees to be out to the side or facing up to the ceiling or legs out straight, whatever is best. So in Pilates, normally I'd have you flex forward and hug your knees in. Now, forced flexion, meaning weighted flexion, when you have osteoporosis, is something we'll keep talking about, is something to avoid, meaning we don't want to put weights on our abs and curl up, right? So we're not gonna, but we can curl this way, and it's not weighted, as long as it feels okay. So if you feel tension in your lower back, we're gonna avoid it. But if you can look down at your knees, and as you breathe in, just take a few breaths, and I want you to notice if your shoulders move. Because as you breathe in, you should be able to breathe in without your shoulders moving at all. So your shoulder blades can expand to the back of the room, but your shoulders themselves, your upper trap shouldn't lift up to your ears. No earmuffs, no earmuff breathing. How are we feeling? Are those okay? Everyone out of their shoulders? That looks good. Is anyone uncomfortable with any of these breathing techniques so far? You all look great. So I'm going to kind of skip the ones where we're leaning on a table. So basically, if you couldn't lean forward this way, you'd sit up as if, let's pretend I'm in a chair, and I'd lean on a table so that my back could stay straight and I could breathe this way. So that's when we're starting to feel really lengthened, and that's important when we're feeling uncomfortable rounding forward. Because what we're trying to do in this whole class, right, is to a lot of the fears. That's what I was kind of reaching for. If you guys anyone had a family member with the hunched posture and you're trying to avoid that. I have a few clients that are like, that's what I don't want, right? Like that's their whole goal in life, is to make sure their posture stays upright. And that's what I want for all of you, is to make sure that your posture stays good. Any questions so far on breathing? Because you're going to get it, like when I start to teach the exercises, I'm going to try to avoid too much breath at first because it gets in the way, because I say exhale and you're inhaling and then you don't know what I'm saying because you're doing the wrong breath and it's confusing. As long as you're breathing, it doesn't matter, right? As long as you're breathing, it really doesn't matter. However, I will tell you, usually when we inhale, so if I don't know how many mothers are in the room, but I call it the mommy seatbelt. When we inhale, right? When you become the seatbelt for whoever's in the passenger seat and you inhale and you reach back, like that's extension. So we naturally extend as we inhale. So we naturally go backwards. So most exercises when we're opening up, we're going to inhale. And naturally, when we exhale, we fold forward. So we kind of go with that. And there are some exercises where we're trying to go against the grain and it changes the breath. But for general purposes, if you're extending on an inhale, you're doing it right. So, and our bodies instinctively know that. So don't fight your bodies. If you get nothing from this class and from Pilates, it's you have to listen to you. My voice as the teacher is never more important than what your body is giving you for feedback. And it's going to tell you something different every day. That's why I fell in love with this work, even as a 24-year-old, is because I was like, oh, I don't know what my body's telling me right now. And tomorrow it hurts. And today it doesn't. And I can do this today and I can't tomorrow. And why? And sometimes it's fatigue. And sometimes it's how you slept. And sometimes it's who knows why, right? I don't know. Sleeping injuries are a thing, apparently, when you become 40-something. So we're going to lie back again, if everyone's comfortable with that, and lie on your back with your head down, facing up to the sky. And just to make sure I'm going in the right order of my notes. As we start to move, the most important thing is that we keep our backs as straight as possible. So we want to avoid kind of that flexion right now. So we're trying to keep everything together. So the first thing we're going to do, though, is pelvic tilt. So we're not overly, so your feet are flat on the floor, knees bent up. And a pelvic tilt is if you put your hands in a triangle on your pelvis, so your hands are on your hip bones, your thumbs can connect, your pointer fingers can connect, and you're kind of pointing towards your pubic bone. Now, imagine your favorite drink. It can even be a cocktail. It's early, but you do what you want. So your thumbs are together, your fingertips are together, and this triangle should be flat. Now, everyone's like, flat? I have a belly there that can't be flat. I don't mean flat like washboard abs. What I mean is that the space between your hip points and your pubic bone are creating a flat surface. So what I want you to do right now is I want you to gently tilt your tail up to the sky and pull your belly button towards the mat. Gently. So I don't want you to overdo this and jam your lower back into the floor. But when you do that, do you feel how your pubic bone is now pointed more to the ceiling and your hip bones are pointed more towards your shoulders? There she is. Hi, Brenda. And then release out. So you're going to stick your buns out. So it's a little tilt to the pelvis, scooping the abs. I think you had to fill out some stuff with Teresa. And then release out. So when you tuck the tail, actually keep your lower back on the mat. So just tuck a little bit. Nope. Don't move that. Don't lift the butt. Just round it. So you're working harder than you need to. So keep your butt down. So we're not lifting the butt off the floor. Stick your butt. Now everyone go the other way. Tilt your pubic bone towards the center of the room. So let your ribs come up. No, it's just your back. So I don't know. I'm not actually sure how you're doing that, but you want to move your hips forward and then release them away. Yeah. And when you come forward, don't come so hard. Yeah, that's it. You're just going extra credit. Okay. You're going balls to the wall over there. Okay. We're going to not go so hard. All right. So a little tuck and a little release. So that's a pelvic tilt. Now, that's not unsafe. What makes a pelvic tilt unsafe or flexion unsafe is when you would do that and then add more weight, right? Like maybe even your legs up into tabletop. So when we do an exercise in Pilates where we'd lift our leg into tabletop, we want to make sure our hips are neutral or our pelvis is neutral so that the hip bones and the pubic bones stay steady and flat. So without moving your buns, lift your right knee up over your right hip. No, and tabletop, so no crossing, no resting. Lift right there. There you go. Hold right there. Inhale to stay. And then exhale, lower that leg down. And then the other leg lifts up. So it's called marching. We're going to keep marching, one leg up, then the other. But as you march your legs, so you can keep moving at your own pace, but as you march your legs, the focus is on your pelvis, not on how high your leg gets, not on how fast you can lift it. The focal point of your mind needs to be on not allowing the pelvic bones to move. Or do you feel the sacrum, the flat bone above your buns? Do you feel that flat into the floor? Do any of you feel like it's easier to lift one leg than the other? No. One of my, like every time I go to lift my right leg, my hips want to move all the weight to the left. Like sometimes you shift your weight side to side, and we want to avoid that as well. But ideally, the most important thing is that you're able to keep your pelvic bowl level. Now keep both feet down for a second. And we're going to look at how your abs. Do you feel your abs when we did that? No? Yes? No. All right. Then look over one shoulder. So you're going to you keep your head down and look over one shoulder and then back to the other. And then turn. And then side. So if this is already aggravating, we're in trouble, right? You should be able to turn your head side to side without aggravation. Now, the next thing that we curl often in Pilates is our neck. So what we are trying to do when we curl the head, neck, and shoulders up, which you won't do if you're in osteoporosis mode, we'll keep your head down and you'll stay flat. If you're in osteopenia, you can lift up. But if you are, no matter what we're doing, when we lift our arms or whatever, we want to make sure we're not extending the neck. So you're going to pull your chin in like you're making almost like you're trying to hug an egg or an apple between your chin and chest, or giving yourself a double chin, not a quadruple chin. Be careful with that. Don't pull it in too much. We're not trying to give yourself 4 chins, but just pull the chin in and then let it go. So you pull your chin in. What's wrong here? What, you're not feeling it?
I got too much here to pull it. I mean, it doesn't.
Okay, so don't worry about what's in front. No, but that's very common, especially because your head's already lifted. You're already a little tilted. You're pretty much there, which is why you're not feeling it so much. But so your head stays on the floor, and when you nod your head, you should feel length behind the neck. So you may feel a little bit in the front, but what we're going for is length in the back of the neck. Is anyone not feeling that? So what we're trying to create is length. And why are we trying to create length? Is because we don't want to support ourselves in a curved like that. We have a natural curve. It's going to be still curved, but we're lengthening it as we pull our chin in. Now when we keep the chin in, lift the arms up over our chests, straight up to the sky. So keep the chin in, abs tight. And we're a little close together, but this is a problem. Let's all come up and spin around. Sorry. We're going to have to come up. You're going to hit the wall other way. So you're going to put your heads towards the center of the room. And if you're on your block, please bring your block with you. So your head is down, your arms are up, your knees are bent, your pelvis is in neutral. So your pelvic bone. So if you had, I should have given you all cups. But you want to believe that you have a cup of water between your hips and it's not going to spill when you lift your arms up. And it's not going to spill as you scissor one arm up over one shoulder and the other down towards the hip, and then switch. Yep. And then switch. And as we keep switching, make sure the neck isn't moving. So sometimes as we move the arms, the chin starts to float up to the ceiling. And if the chin floats up to the ceiling, you might be overdoing it. These look great. So now we're going to reach the arms. Watch your neighbor, but reach your arms out to the sides like a little T. They don't have to touch the floor. They can go high or low. Yes. I know, we're a little close. And then come back up. And again, shoulders down, neck stays in, open out, and come up. Last one. Good. Last time, come up over your shoulders and then let the arms float down by your side. Keep the chin in. Keep the tail exactly where it is. So you're in that neutral pelvis. Lift your toes up so your heels dig into the floor. And we're going to slide your right foot away from you. So the right leg slides on the floor and the right leg pulls back. And then your left leg slides to the floor, away, and pulls back. So you may not be able to go all the way straight without letting your back tilt. So if your back shifts, like if you start to tuck your tail under to support, or if you start to tilt your pelvis out and your lower back changes. So basically how your back shape starts this, it should end it. And you can go as fast or as slow as you want. But I notice, and I appreciate you all doing these in parallel, try to do them in turnout. So now let your knees turn out like your little frog leg to the beginning, and you press one leg out straight and pull it back in. So both legs are in frog, and you pull it in. So, and you could do one at a time or both together. So challenge yourself. So we're, okay, so some of you lost me. So your legs are in frog, but you're doing heel slides. So you're just doing your heel slides in turnout. There we go. And it can be one leg at a time, or if you want to challenge yourself a little extra, do both legs at the same time. Is anyone feeling their back? So something we should always mention in a Pilates class, I would say any class, but definitely a Pilates class, if you feel your neck or your lower back, it's time to stop. Naturally, we know that knees are joints and ankles are joints and wrists are joints, and we stop when we feel those. But we don't stop sometimes when our back or our neck hurts. You always should. They are joints. Don't work through neck pain. Don't work through back pain. What's going on? Like make noises?
Like that, about right
Okay, almost in your back, your hip point. Yep, I would ignore that, and that might not be good advice. But okay, that's a really, really good point. Bring your knees back up. Mine do the same. I actually have one I call the Simon hip because it only started after my son. It's his fault. Knees go straight up to the ceiling, but it doesn't hurt, but it does always make a little like air popping noise. Yep. So let's lift keep your feet on the floor and just lift your right leg straight up over your hip. So with your right leg straight, all the way straight. Okay. You know what straight is? There's no bend. Ha! Straighten your legs. Okay. Now, I felt like my dance teacher just now, but it's a thing. So you're going to stretch your toes all the way to the ceiling. Now, what happens sometimes is when we reach our leg all the way, the toes to the ceiling, we almost feel like we're reaching the leg bone out of the hip socket, right? So pull the hip bone or the leg bone back into the hip. So feel like you're anchoring your leg bone heavy into the hip. And then we're going to make little circles. Inhale for half a circle. Exhale to complete it. Now, the circle is with the leg bone, not the ankle. And if your left hip is moving even a little bit, you're going too far. So your pelvic bowl should stay stable. Go the other direction with your circles. Inhale for half a circle. Exhale to complete it. Again, if the breath is confusing, just skip it. But take stock in your buns. Are you tucking your tail under? Sometimes when we try to get that leg closer to us, our pelvis rocks. We don't want the pelvis to rock. The tail stays out. Bend the knee, lower the foot down. Other side. So reach the toes, pause here, lengthen. I know you know we're going to do circles, but before we start circles, please get your legs straighter and drop your hip or your leg bone, femur, down into the hip. And inhale for half a circle, exhale to complete it. Challenge yourself. If your hips aren't moving, your leg circles could be bigger. If your pelvic bowl starts to rock, you just went too far. You're not going to break for challenging yourself. You really aren't, as long as you're challenging yourself incrementally and you're not just going from this to like rollerblading. Go the other direction. Straighten the leg even more. 4, 3, 2, and release down. All right, how do those feel? All right, we're gonna roll face me. So we're all gonna face the inside of the room, so you're on your side. So we're all gonna be on different sides, but roll and face this side, and your knees stay stacked. So if you, face this direction, sorry. Turn around. If anyone needs something under their head, I have more rolls or balls or blocks. But we're going to lie on one side and stack your shoulders, stack your hips, stack your knees. Do you want this? Does anyone want a block or a cushion? We good? All right, so now we're going to focus on lying down. So is anyone a side sleeper? You are. So I'm going to put this under your head. Yeah. So when we lie on our side, don't correct right now. Just notice, how are you? Are your hips stacked? Is your tail tucked under? Your shoulders risen? I know you're on a pillow, some of you, but even if you're on your arm, is your shoulder lifted up? Are you on your shoulder or on your arm? So you want to make sure that when we lie to do exercise, that we're not resting, right? We're working. So you want to stack your shoulders one on top of the other. What's awesome, has everyone heard about weight-bearing exercise? And that's what we should be doing? Do we know what that is? Just a question. Anyone know what weight-bearing exercise is?
Making the muscle work so the bone strengthens.
Right, it is making the muscles work so the bone strengthens. How we do that usually is with external weight. And most of us, at least, think that we do that by going to the gym and lifting heavy weights, right? We get weight-bearing exercises in a Pilates class just by doing exercises like this. Now your underside, whatever side you're lying on, is weight-bearing for your upper side, the top. So really great. Now we could add weights to this, and in a classes here, we add springs, right? We add spring tension and a lot of external weight. But first we need to make sure we're doing it right. So you're gonna keep your shoulders stacked. So when you lie down, the first thing that a lot of us do is we tuck our shoulder back behind us a little too much. So the bottom shoulder most likely needs to come forward. And personally, I am a side sleeper and I round my back, like I tuck my tail under and scoop my belly back. So I have to always, when I'm doing exercise, is think of sticking my buns out, like lengthening my lower back. And if you do that, does that change anything for everybody? Did you feel how that changed your abs, hopefully? Yeah? You get it? Sorry, it's a little too short. So you're lengthening the back, your hips are stacked. Now, how you know your hips are stacked is your knees should be. Do you need something under your head? Yes. I'm running out of blocks here, but I'll find something. I got something. I got things. Anyone else? Susan, you want something? Yes, you do. All right. Ooh, snap, crackle, pop, somebody. Okay. I should have mentioned, if everyone's wondering about what's going on in here, we did have a flood a little bit ago. So that's why there's no baseboards. Reach the arms out. Palms face each other or stack each other. So that's how we know our shoulders are stacked. If our palm, and you can rest your arms down. It's like a little Pac-Man. But you want to, if your fingers are stacked, that means your shoulders are. If your knees are stacked, that means your hips are. So sometimes when we lie down, we do this. So make sure your hips are stacked, make sure your arms are stacked, your shoulders are. Lift the top arm up. Now the underside isn't resting. It's pulling in. It might be touching the floor. That's a different story. But it's not resting. And reach back. And your eyes can go to the sky as you reach back. Yeah, say hello to your neighbors. Okay. And then inhale, lift back up. And exhale to close. Inhale to lift up. Exhale to reach back. So There are very few twisting exercises when you get to full osteoporosis that are safe. This one is. This one is safe because we are on the floor. We are not letting gravity pull us around. We are in charge of it. Really good to do to create space and to keep our muscles from tensing up. Does anyone feel, let me know if you're not feeling this. You should feel maybe a little chest stretch. You might feel between the shoulder blades. If you're not feeling anything, talk to me, because sometimes just a little tweak will help everything. All right, then you can rest your arms in front of you. No more twisting, but we do want to keep the waist length the same on either side. So you're not letting your waist crunch on the top. Keep it nice and anchored, and we're going to clamshell. I like to put my top hand on my top hip because it's real easy to want to make these bigger and to lean back. And when we lean back, not only do we end up using our back, don't worry, you're not going to hurt your back, but you stop getting the work where we're trying to get it. It stops being as weight bearing for the bottom side when your hip rotates back. 4 more here. 4, 3. Are we starting to feel our outer hip and thigh? No worries. We got plenty more. Now lift like a book cover up and down. So you're going to lift up and down. But when you come down, I don't want you to actually touch. You're almost coming down and then lifting back up. Now reassess your lower back. You might need to stick your butt out again because sometimes we start to get into our hip flexors or abs start to take over. We want to stick the buns out. 2 more. Really good. Now, internal rotation, something we can't do standing, so it's really good to do when we're lying down, is we turn the toes up, the knee down. And we keep that rotation, keep the angle, and lift and lower. Ouchie, yeah. But you should feel it a little differently. It should be in a different part of the glute than well, it's not part, it's a totally different glute. We have 3. All right, now, hacky sack is what I call it, but you touch your toes and touch your knees. Touch your toes, then touch your knees. Now again, we could do this with an external weight just on our hip or on our knee or with an ankle weight, or we add spring tension to it in Pilates, most commonly. 2 more. All right, we're gonna get a little stretch here. So you're gonna stretch the leg out towards me, towards the, yeah, you can kick her, she's okay. Just kidding. I'm just kidding, don't kick Brenda. And hold right there and lower and lift the leg down and up. Down and up. Good, stick your buns out. 8, 7, 6, really good. 3, 2, last one, and release. Good, how are we feeling? Like we want to stretch that out? Yeah, lie on your back. So again, your head goes up to the sky. The leg you just worked is gonna cross over. So your right ankle over your left thigh. Push the knee away. So this is one of the favorites. So the leg you just worked, ankle over knee, ankle, and then push this knee away. Ooh, nope, keep this up, push this knee away. Yeah, there we go. And you want to almost feel like you're arching the back on this one. And you can lift up if you want, you don't have to. And you can pull in if you want. No, if you're feeling it, don't let me stop you from getting a stretch. This is the best part. I always say we don't date hip stretches. When we find one that works, we marry it. Just do that same one over and over again. That's fine. Hips don't like change. Is anyone not feeling this stretch? I have others. We're good. All right, roll all the way over. We'll do the other side for balance. So the easiest place to correct your posture is on the floor. So you can, because you have that feedback of the floor telling you, oh, you're in the right place. Oh, you're not. Do you need a higher pillow? That looks really uncomfortable. I'll give you the ball here. Like that looks like you're gonna not. Does anyone want something else? We're good? All right, so you're on your pillow, your arms out in front of you, your shoulders drop down, your ribs are in, your butt is out, your knees are stacked, your fingers match up. Inhale, lift the top arm up. Exhale, reach it behind you. As you reach the arm behind you, you can spin open the chest, and then you inhale to come back up and exhale to close. pull your right shoulder back more. So you're, yeah, even more. Now you're stacked. Inhale, lift. Exhale, reach. Go with it, go with it. Really nice. Inhale, lift. And exhale, lower. Let's do 2 more here. And we may feel this more on one side than the other. That goes for everything. And then we'll relax your hands. You don't have to stay in Pac-Man if you don't want to. But now we're going to clamshell, bend the knees or open the knees away from each other and come back down. So again, real easy to get too carried away and let the leg come back. And again, when I say you're going to use your back, I don't mean you're going to end up in traction. People get really nervous when I say back. They're like, oh my God, you use your back all day long. But it's definitely not what we're trying to work here. So the more you can make sure that your hips are stacked, your tail is out, and the abs are in, the better. Now open like a book cover. Remember, no, don't come all the way down. Come almost all the way down and come back up. Hip stack. Keep the top hip forward. So bring your right hip back a little bit more. Yep, and this one forward. There we go. Yep, just that. It is hard to tell without a mirror sometimes when we're all stacked and ready. And then the knee angles down, the toes angle up, and we're going to keep that internal rotation. We don't shift the leg position. We just lift it up and down. So we're not rotating. We're just lifting and up and down. 8. So you may notice one leg, like internal rotation, some of us don't like. Some of us really like it if you cross your legs, right? One leg may really enjoy it if you're someone who crosses your legs all the time. Then we're going to, like hacky sack, toes touch, knees touch. Toes touch, knees touch. 5, 4, 3, 2, and then kick the top leg out straight and lower down and lift. Down and up. 8, 7, 6. Kick right towards Pam, even more. Yeah, 3, there you go. 2, you should feel a burn. They're fire. I should have mentioned second side's going to burn way more. And release down, roll onto your back. You all survived it. So roll onto your back and cross the other ankle over the other. So the leg you just worked, that ankle crosses over the thigh. And push the knee away. So this stretch may or may not be your favorite. Why I love this stretch is what's very rare for stretches is the ability to arch your spine to like open. And that's very important on this one. We're going to do one more on our back. So in order for us to do that, though, I need everyone to take whatever they have under their heads away. So your feet are down. Even if I gave it to you at the very beginning, nothing is under your head. Hands down by your side. All 10 toes face the same direction, which is the wall in front of you. And without rolling, so we're not articulating, we're just lifting like a nice, strong line. We're lifting up towards the ceiling, hips up into a bridge. Yep. Hold as you inhale. And exhale, lower back down, heavy. All right, so some of you are rolling through the spine. Obviously, if it doesn't hurt, that's fine, but eventually that might not be great because rolling through the spine. Oh, hamstrings. Are we feeling our hamstrings? Oh, that's a product of this. Yep, that's going to happen. But lift your hips up. Sometimes the hamstrings are actively overworking because the glutes and abs are not. So lower back down. So before we lift, feel like you're solidifying the space between your ribs and hips, almost like you're tightening suspenders. Remember suspenders? They were super cute. Pull your suspenders on, then lift your hips and squeeze your butt at the top, just a little, only if your hamstrings are freaking out. I'd rather you not use your butt too much, but if you need to, squeeze the butt. Then like you've been chopped at the hips, so you're going to let the hips be heavy as you lower down. Yeah. Inhale, exhale, lift straight up. Good, hold there. So when you roll down, you're softening here first. Stick your butt out and feel like you have a paperweight in your tail as you lower down way better. Feel the difference? Yet you're really long through here as you lower. So lift up. And so keep the hips up, and then like a paperweight is in your tail, lower down tail first. Yeah, nice. You can bring your feet in if that might be part of it too. Your feet are too far away. One more time, lift up. It might just be your tight hamstrings. How do these feel? Can we lift a heel? Right heel lifts. Oh, people are lifting their whole foot. I love it. Give me more than I ask for every time. You're my favorite. Lower back down, lift the other leg. Yeah. And lower the foot back down and lower down. So bridging, is anyone feeling discomfort in their head, neck, and shoulders? Sweet. All right, so before we lift again, we will lift again, but give yourself maybe a little stretch where the soles of your feet come together. Cobbler stretch is called. Feet together, knees open to the sides. So when we do bridging, which we're going to do again, there's a few things you should always, especially if you ever do it at home, there are a few things you should always pay attention to, and it's neck placement is one of them. So where you place the weight is important. So for everybody, not just for osteoporosis, you want to make sure that the weight is behind your breastbone, not on your neck. And if you tend to have a long neck, I can easily get on my neck and not realize it until the next day. And I'm like, oh, why's my neck hurt? So what we're going to do now is you're going to put your feet back down on the floor, keep your knees hips width apart, all 10 toes face forward, and lift the hips up. Now, when you lift the hips up, can you look side to side? And it doesn't have to be like all the way. Just move your head, basically. If you can move your head, your weight's probably in the right place. Lower the hips back down nice and heavy. Inhale again. Exhale, lift up. Another test is to very lightly lift your head off the mat and place it back down. If you can lift even a little bit, you're in the right position. And you don't have to do it with your head up. Please never do. It's just a test. And lower, like of the National Broadcasting System. It will go away. Don't do it the whole time. It's annoying. So lift the hips back up and hold. Abs stay tight. These look awesome. Now, maybe instead of lifting the toes up or the heel up, lift the toes up. And that will dig into your hamstrings. So if you're already freaking out with the hamstrings, maybe don't do that. And lower the feet back down and lower the hips back down. Let's do one more time. Lift the hips straight up. Abs tight. Lift the toes. Lower the toes. These look awesome. And lower the hips back down. How are we feeling? Feel your abs on that? Or does that feel like a piece of cake? Anne says, no, I'm not feeling anything. Not feeling anything. Okay. We will make those harder next week, I promise. If you don't want to make them harder, we will go over this again. You don't have to memorize anything. That's my job. That's job security right there. Flip over onto your bellies. So first off, come on your hands. So your hands are like stacked under your forehead. Is anyone uncomfortable already in this position? Okay, so that's a win. A lot of osteoporotic clients would not be able to even lie like this, right? So that is a win, and I want you to internally give yourselves all a high five. Yay me, I'm awesome, right? This is great, honestly. This is what we want to maintain and make it better. So first off, I want you to squeeze your shoulder blades down your back like you're putting them in your back pockets. Then I want you to pull your belly button in as though you're pulling your abs away from the floor. Then you're going to keep your hands on the floor, but lift your head off your hands a little bit. And as you do, I want you to feel the upper back muscles and lower back down. So you push the hands down into the floor, squeeze the shoulders down and back, and then lift the upper body up. Nice, Brenda. Inhale, hold, and exhale, lower back down. Is anyone not feeling their upper back muscles work? Sometimes your hands are too close together and you need to slide your elbows out, is why I say that. So sometimes if you slide your arms out and you can squeeze your shoulder blades together a little better, you'll feel the mid-back work. So why is it important to work the mid-back? That's not really a question. I'll answer it for you. It is for that rounded spine, right? We want these muscles to be active so that we can keep our chest as far open as possible. Now when we lift, we're going to lift the upper body, but we're going to like salute with our right arm. So our right arm is going to come up as well. And then we're going to lower back down. Then we're going to lift the left arm up. And lower back down. Shoulder blades squeeze together, lift the right. You can keep the elbows bent. You don't have to straighten your arms. And lift the left. One more each side. Is it easier to lift one side? Can you go higher with one side? Sometimes there's multiple reasons for that. Now lift both hands connected to your forehead as you lift up. And come back down. Lift both hands connected to your forehead as you lift up and lower back down. 2 more. Shoulder blades down. Inhale, lift. Exhale, lower. Last one. And exhale, lower. Good. That's probably enough extension for right now, because you can only have so much. But we're going to come up onto all fours, hands and knees. So on your hands and knees, some people call it quadruped. I think that's ridiculous. It makes me feel like an animal. So I really do. I'm sorry. I like a 4-point position. So hands under shoulders, knees under hips. So really important that we're on our hands. So we're going to take a second. We're going to focus on our wrists. So as I mentioned at the very beginning of class, the arm bone is one of the easiest bones to fracture, specifically when you have osteoporosis in your bones, but it's also one that we neglect as we age of strengthening, specifically if you're not using weights. So with your hands on the floor, notice how your wrists are at a very strong 90-degree angle. And that's aggravating for a lot of us. A lot of us when we're 14, let alone older than that, right? So what I want you to focus on, it might be easier if we all sit up for a second. So let's all sit up and just watch for a second. So I'm going to turn the lights back on because we're not staring at them anymore. When your arms are straight, let's all reach our arms out in front of us straight. Do we notice how we, like some of us, not all of us probably, are hyperextending, meaning our hands are a little lower than our elbows when we straighten our arms? Or if your palms are up, sometimes the forearms completely match. That means hyperextension. It's not a given, but hyperextending at the elbow will create wrist and shoulder tension. How you can tell when you're on all fours, like we just were, is, see, I do it obviously. So see how the center of my elbows is facing forward? It's not pretty. That means it's wrong, right? In Pilates, if it's ugly, it's wrong. It's true. Pilates is aesthetically pleasing. But bend the elbows. These are quotes from my mentor. Can you hear my? It's bad. But you can bend if you bend the elbows, so I had another mentor that was like, you're not bending, you're straightening. Straight is straight, straight is straight, which is right. So like when I can go past straight into a bow, right? Like a ballerina does with her legs. I can't do it with my legs, but you know that hyperextended to the knees that makes it look straight when you're in point shoes? We don't want that. That's not safe. So when you block out, you put all of your weight either in your wrist joint or your shoulder joint. Basically, you're bypassing the elbow joint, and these muscles are not working because they're overextended. So you have to soften. And so it feels like a bend to you, but the bone should still, like the arm should still look straight, right? So we think straight, but we focus on, think bent, but focus on straight, if that helps. So when your arms are down, another thing that some of us do, and because I'm hypermobile in my hands, see on my fingertip, like if I reach my fingers, they call them uppity fingers, for lack of a better term, that means you're a little hypermobile in your fingers too. So some of you may be feeling your wrists because when you put your hands down, you're putting the weight in the joint of the finger instead of in the muscles. So it's just something, and again, if you're not doing this, I'm sorry, but it's just one of those things that it really can change your exercise life if you do it correctly. So I have, like when I was doing yoga years and years ago, I would have to think about putting like an old Coke top, like a glass bottle cap in the center of, I never did it because that would hurt, but feel like that's here. So when you put down, you're not pushing into the center of your hand, you're almost like lifting up. And if you feel like you're lifting up the palm a little bit, then you also end up putting weight into the pads of the fingers instead of the joint. So that may help for some of you. So let's come back onto all fours and play with it, because unfortunately, we can't do a lot of the rounding exercises that we would do in 90%. That's a lie. It's probably 70% of Pilates is flexion, which we're omitting when we have osteoporosis. So to omit the flexion, we have to make sure that we're doing all of these straight postures 100% correct. So your hands may have to lift a little bit, or the palms lift, the elbows soften, And then what I like to do is feel like my thumbs are almost like I'm turning jelly jars open. Like, so you're pushing your thumbs towards your pinky, and that will help rock your shoulders down your back. And you should feel really locked into your upper body. It's a lot on your wrists, huh? Is that okay? Arthritis, yeah. That's hard. And then from here, what I want you to do is just reach the right arm out without changing your back. So you all have nice straight backs. Keep that. Reach your right arm out in front of you. And then pull it back underneath. And then your left arm out in front of you. And pull it back underneath. Reach. And pull. Reach. And pull. Now that we've done both sides, recheck your stance. Are you locked in your elbows? Some of you are, right? Because we go right back to where we want to be, which is not working. Our bodies have been hardwired to go from point A to point B using as less energy as possible. So for us to use our whole arm, it's a lot of energy. So every time we come back, we lock back in. So let's do it another set of 3 each arm. And I want you to be careful not to lock out of your elbow or flatten your hands. Right, so you want to feel like you're cat curling? Yeah. Good. Perfect. Like that.
This one?
Yep, and then open your collar. So stick your boobs out. There you go. Yeah. Yeah. There we go. Does that feel different? It should feel stronger and maybe more fatiguing, but that's all good. All right, so we're almost running out of time, and I have some other things I wanted to do in 4-point, but we'll come back to that next week. But before that, this when we rock back, so very commonly in a Pilates class, yoga class, whatever, they tell you to do child's pose. And child's pose is, if it doesn't hurt, great, I guess. But because it's gravitational force, it's not the worst exercise you could do in flexion, but it may not feel good. And so as we hopefully combat our osteoporosis, what I want you to focus on is going back with a straight back and coming back up. So we're just going to rock back and forth for a moment, which feels really weird. But I just think of my kids when they were learning how to crawl, and they do this. They like rock back and forth. And so as you rock back and forth, you really want to feel like you have a long tail and it's going straight behind you. So not allowing your back to round. So stick your butt out more, Ian. Yeah, there you go. And do it that way. It's awkward. It's not ladylike by any stretch of the imagination. But that's okay.
But you don't want to round your back.
We're trying to avoid it. Again, you round your back all day, right? Like it's not like you're not going to round your back. So I don't want you to be fearful of rounding your back. However, the danger is when we're exercising, is that you're warmer than you normally are. So if you round your back, it may be a little too much. So when we're exercising specifically, if we can, in this resting posture, it would normally be called shell stretch, child's pose, there's lots and lots of names for this exercise. It's where some people meditate. And it's supposed to be restful, but you can't rest here. No resting here. All right, let's have a seat. We're gonna end on our buns. Sit as comfortable as you can. If you need to sit up on a block or whatever you're using under your head to make joints comfortable. What I had been planning to do, and I'm going to leave until next week, is there are a few, we're going to start with getting up and down from the floor and rolling from side to side without rounding the back. Because normally when we go down to the floor, right, we'd roll down and just come down, right? And we want to keep the back really flat, so it's going to be a lunge. And the reason why I'm telling you why we're not working on this today is some of you might need sneakers. So in order to get up and down from